Okay, welcome everybody to episode 23 of That Moment Heart to Heart Talk. And today I am here with the incredible Siri Lindley. Siri, welcome.
Thank you, Victoria. I'm so happy to be here today. So thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah, I feel just so at home and at ease, and I can't wait for our conversation. For everyone out there, you're incredible. I'm actually going to have you share a little bit about yourself, but I mean, world champion, and you save horses, which by the way, to me is like up there with world champion and triathlon, right? And like just coach two people who have done incredible things in the sports realm and just contributing to people all over the world, and then seeing you on the Tony Robbins screen and you being someone to me that I've watched. So you're incredible, Siri. And I would love to know who are you in the world, in your own words?
Wow. Well, first of all, thank you for all those kind statements. I feel like I am just like everyone else. And what I'm most proud of is not necessarily the title of world champion or, the title of speaking on Tony Robbins' stage. I'm so proud of the fact that as a teenager, I felt so lost, so alone, so crazy that I'm so proud of myself for never giving up on myself, for believing in myself, for getting on a path of personal discovery to discover my strengths and how we all have magic inside of us, and that I had the willingness to find mine and to dream big and to know that any path to success is not this perfectly paved road. There's going to be potholes and there's going to be speed bumps and U-turns and all these things. And that's what I'm most proud of, is that I never gave up on me, and I gave myself permission to dream big and to believe that even me, even I, could achieve something that I felt was really special. So I guess that's who I am. Someone in this world now that, I want to help people find their own magic. And there's this, my favorite quote ever, Michelangelo. I saw the angel in the marble, and I carved until I set her free. Now that has impacted me so profoundly, because the way I see it, the way I look at that, is that we all have built up marble around us throughout our lives. And the marble is our fears, our anxieties, our self-doubt, our limiting stories. And we all build that up. And when we decide to start chipping away at the marble, we eventually, the light shines through and our angel is revealed. And that's when we can truly shine, not just give ourselves permission to shine, but inspire everyone around us to do the same. So I kind of live by that quote, and I want to help people chip away at their marble so that they too can reveal their angel and live the life that they dream of, the life that we all deserve.
Siri, what you just described is my full definition of what it means to be an expert companion to someone in this journey of life, because it's like you have been there and you don't push people, but you guide them lovingly, because even though they can't see the possibility, you see the possibility for them. And I feel like I know a little bit more about your life than the average human, because I'm in the midst of reading your book, and I just shared that with you before. But you weren't always in this mindset. This wasn't something that was like, oh, you're born, this is something that you have thought about, like how you've been through so much. I don't even know where you'd begin to answer this question, but like, how did that even form? How did that mindset come about? Yeah.
Well, to get to that point, I guess I have to start with, the tough part. And the first 4 years of my life were amazing. My family didn't have much. We lived in a tiny home, but there was so much love. There was so much connection. But then my mom and dad got divorced, and my mom remarried. And this man was totally different. He was famous. He traveled the world. They were gone for 2-3 weeks at a time. But the horrible part was that in the beginning of their relationship, they had initially broken up. And my mom at the time, I guess, didn't really have the emotional fitness to deal with that. And one night she tried to take her own life. And my sister and I were in our bedroom and we heard this crying, and we ran into her room, and she was on the floor with an empty pillbox by her side. I was just beside myself. I was devastated. I was scared. And it was in that moment that I made the decision that I'm not enough. I'm not enough for my own mom to want to stick around for me, you know, and that was devastating. And the thing is that, like, we have these traumatic experiences really early on, and we make a really powerful decision. And I was a 4-year-old making this decision, but you forget over time that that's just not true. Mm-hmm. That came from something so long ago. It's an outdated decision. It's not the truth, but we don't realize that. And so from that point, you know, they ended up getting married, and they were married for 13 years. But after 13 years, he asked for a divorce. And so in my mind, even though at this point I'm like 15, 16 years old, I'm thinking, oh my God, he's leaving her. And the last time he did this, this is what happened. And so I start panicking, thinking I need to do everything in my power to make life worth living for my mom. Now, she didn't need this. Keep in mind, like, I'm making this up in my own mind. She was strong. She was going to be fine. But mm-hmm. for me, all I could remember is what happened when I was 4.
Right.
So I started just, you know, putting all this pressure on having to be perfect and having to achieve and having to make her happy and being responsible literally for her life. And it was so much pressure, and there was so much fear, and there was so much anxiety that I developed this extreme case of OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, to the point that when I eventually had to leave for college, which was a huge struggle because I did not want to leave her side, I went to college, and I'm a straight A student, playing varsity in 3 sports. So, like, on the outside, it looked like, you know, I have it made. My life is great. But on the inside, I was slowly dying because I would have to schedule, you know, if I had practice at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I would have to start getting ready to leave at 1 o'clock because I would have to flick the lights on and off, on and off, on and off, like 1,000 times until I could get a horrible thought out of my mind. Mm-hmm. Or wash my hands over and over and over again until I could be free of something that was haunting me or making me fear or worry. And I felt like an absolute crazy person because in that day, nobody talked about anxiety. Nobody talked about fear. Nobody talked about whatever this was that I was doing, this OCD. People weren't as vulnerable as they are now. They weren't talking about their struggles. So I thought that I was the only person in the world that had this struggle, that was dealing with it in this way. And I couldn't live with myself. I felt terrified in my own skin. Mm. And this is when Tony Robbins, who's my greatest mentor in my life, came into my life with his books. And I found a book of his. And this one sentence just kind of woke me up. And it was, where focus goes, energy flows. And I thought, you know, I'm sitting there thinking that life is just going to happen. And I just have to, like, be there and protect myself and protect everyone around me. And I realized that, like, I'm the conductor of my own symphony of life. And if I don't like, you know, the music that I'm creating, I'm the only one that has the power to change it, me. I can't just sit here and hope it's going to change. Like, it's up to me. And then I thought, okay, where focus goes, energy flows. And I thought about it, like, all this time, I've been focusing on what was missing, not on what I had. I mean, imagine how good I'd feel if I thought about, wow, you know, I'm getting great grades. I'm going to this amazing, you know, Brown University. I'm playing 3 sports and I'm good at it. I've got friends. I've got people who love me. But instead, I'm just focusing on everything I didn't have. I'm focusing on everything I feared, everything I didn't want to have happen all the time. Like, I hope that doesn't happen. I hope that doesn't happen. Instead of focusing on what I loved and what I wanted to create in my life, totally different energy. And I was focusing on everything I had no control over, which is, what happens, somebody getting sick, somebody dying, whatever it is. All I was focusing on is what I had no control over, rather than what I had all the control over, which is my own experience of life. And when I realized that, thank God, I decided to back myself and support myself and say, Siri, we can do this. We can turn things around just by changing our focus, changing the meaning that we give things, and doing things differently. And as far as the OCD went, what was so powerful there is I kind of used the leverage and said, if all I'm focusing on is all these horrible things happening, the more I focus on it, the more energy I'm bringing to that actually happening. And that leverage was enough for me to say, that's it.
Wow.
And it went from, I think OCD is really powerful, to a certain extent in your life. It's great. It helps you achieve, it helps you stay organized, all of that. But when you cross that line, like where I was, it was just completely debilitating me. But so that's when my life really turned around. And, the exciting part was that I didn't know who I was. I had no idea who I was, what I wanted to create, what I wanted to experience. And so I kind of, thought of this as an incredible opportunity for me to get to know me, for me to discover, what makes me tick, what excites me, what lights me up, what do I want to achieve? And that's when I discovered triathlon. And it was just the perfect vehicle through which I could find me, which is what was, the biggest thing that I wanted to accomplish at that point in time.
I love it.
It's a long-winded.
Oh, no, there's just so much more. We're not even scraping the surface, but in reading about your life and, you sharing in your book, I'm privy to the fact that you're incredible, the way that you're talking about this. And at the same time, there were people, I think you said something like your sister, something about not wanting to overshadow her, or your stepfather. And there were so many people in your life and so many people in all of our lives that we could turn and say, well, yes, you can't control someone dying, but you also can't control the fact that someone's being a jerk, or someone took that opportunity away from you, or someone did this. How were you able to transcend that and do it in such a way that you remain consistent in your approach, your path to doing it? Like, how do you do that? Because so many people have that light bulb moment, but they don't sustain it. It doesn't feel like it's in their reach. How did you do it?
That's like the best question ever, Victoria. And I don't think anyone has ever asked me that. I decided to start loving myself. I just decided to start believing that my life was just as important as someone else's. And, as far as, my sister was like the star lacrosse player in high school. And her coach came and said, Siri, you should take up lacrosse. I think you're going to really love it. I think you're going to be good at it. And I remember saying, oh, it looks so fun and amazing, but my sister's a star and I don't want to step on her territory.
Yeah.
And my sister didn't like that I was playing lacrosse, because I don't think she felt threatened by me, but I think she just didn't want to be around me at that time. You know how kids can be, she didn't want to be around her sister. It was going to cramp her style. But that coach, Renee Spellman, gosh, she was such an incredible influence on my life. And she said, if this excites you, if this is something that, kind of makes your heart skip a beat, it's just as important for you to be able to experience it as it is your sister. And, you're important too. And I think that has to be the moment where I stopped kind of, being in the background. Even as a kid, there were like 3 years where I didn't speak a word except to my mom. I was a complete mute. And I guess I think it must have been Coach Spellman that said, your life is just as important as anyone else's. And it took me years to really live that way. Like I still spent the next maybe 3 years living for everyone else around me, pleasing. I was a pleaser. As long as everyone else was happy, as long as, I was making people happy and not sad, as long as I was achieving and so my parents could be proud of me, then I'm living life the way it's meant to be lived. So I still did that for a while, but it was at that point when I nearly lost my life due to how unhappy I was, where I decided I've got to stop. I've got to stop hustling for my sense of worthiness outside of myself, by whether I'm accepted by my friends, my parents, my teachers, whatever, because that was never going to make me happy. And I needed to break through that identity of being a pleaser and an achiever and everything I needed to be for everyone else and create a new identity for myself. And in making that decision, that's why I was so intent upon really figuring out who I am so that I could have someone that I could love and that I could be proud of and that I could respect. And most importantly, to find the me that I could feel safe with. And so I think I just reached a point where I just didn't want to suffer anymore. I didn't want to suffer anymore. And I realized that, again, thanks to Tony and his teachings, that we choose to suffer or we choose to be joyful. And yes, that means even when you're going through the hardest thing in your life, you can still choose not to suffer and you can still choose to find joy. And that's the decision I made for me. So I know that I loved myself enough to make that decision. And then I've spent the rest of my life really trying to love and appreciate myself, knowing that in order to truly love others and truly care for others and truly bring out the best in others, you have to do that for yourself first.
Isn't it beautiful, Siri, what Tony Robbins brings out in people and us? At the last event, Date with Destiny, it was virtual. There was a woman in a breakout that said exactly what you're sharing, and it pierced my listening so much. And she said, well, I'm here because, and then she just went away. She it was like a blip, and then we went back into the room, but she said, well, I'm here because I want to learn to love myself so that when I am in relationship, when that person is down, I could be up for them, right? Because when we're not in love with us, when we're not there for us, if someone else is down, we're down with them because it's all about us. But to be really of contribution, it starts with you. And so beautifully how that was stated. I do have a question though. In reality, when we're going through that and we're so, I'm going to be provocative and say sometimes addicted to being pleasing because we want so much to be loved. And somehow in our life that became, intertwined. There are these feelings that come up, even though we're dedicated and we made that decision, there are these feelings that still come up. And so many times it's like, well, won't that nasty feeling just go away? Won't it just go away? How did you transcend through those feelings that still kept coming up? How did you talk to yourself? What did you do? Because did you befriend them? Did you acknowledge them? What worked for you?
So, and you're so right. Like those feelings, they're always going to pop up. They don't just go away. It's not like you learn to love yourself and then everything else goes away. But you start building the muscle of loving yourself and appreciating yourself and living your authentic self. So you're building that muscle. So that's stronger than those old voices, those old beliefs. So you're better able when they do pop up to recognize when they're there. So I recognize when I feel that. And then I usually just ask myself questions, depending on what's going on, if I'm choosing to do something for someone else and I totally don't want to do it, but I'm pleasing, which I still, again, like it's still going to come up. I'll ask myself, is this what is really best for me in this moment? Because if it's not something that's good for me in that moment, I'm not going to show up as my best self for that person that's asking me to be somewhere else. And so and this isn't a selfish thing. So let me clear this up, because it sounds like it's kind of like selfish. Oh, well, if that's not good for me, I'm not going to do it. No, it's not like that. But if I'm choosing, for example, I'll try and come up with an example. Say, I'm here and I'm still healing from what's gone on the last year. And sometimes I'll know that, I'm kind of at my max with my workload, and I need to rest and recover so that I can show up tomorrow and do my very best for my clients and my athletes and everyone that I really want to serve. But somebody asked and said, can you please, just give me 1 hour to help me with something? And I'll know that if I take that hour to please and to be in their, good graces, that yes, I'm going to be helping them, but then I'm potentially going to really weaken myself. So all the people that I'm hoping to serve the following day get half of what they would have got. And so it's really asking yourself the question, is this the best decision for me to make right now? Am I being true to me? And this is where, living authentically means that you are living true to your values and what matters to you. And taking on things like different projects or different things, I always ask myself, are these things, or is this event in alignment with what matters most to me? As a world champion, maybe this is a better example. When I was training and racing and trying to become great in this sport, things would come up and I would ask myself, is this going to help me achieve that ultimate goal, or is it going to get in the way and slow me down? And in recognizing which one it was, I would decide whether to do it or whether not to do it. And I think it's just building the awareness, recognizing and asking yourself the question, why am I choosing to do this? Is it because I'm trying to please, or is it because I truly, with my heart, want to go and do this right now? I hope that helps. That was a little bit around the block.
No, that was perfect. And it was perfectly roundabout, perfectly imperfect, right? I love that. And it's a discernment between our just programming, and that's not a negative thing. It's just what's there, right? It's just the experiences we've had. And then the awareness, those moments of awareness that then can really carry us. And what I hear in your speaking is also this wise part, right? Like you said, I would talk to myself. I said, Siri, we can do it, right? Like because there's always that part that says I can't, or I have to stay where I'm comfortable, and in pain, right? Because pain can sometimes be comfortable when we don't know what's on the other side. And then there's this wise part, and you talked about that, building a muscle and really remaining focused on what your decision is, right, to yourself. So I think that was great. And so with that, I'm very happy that you're here and you decided to spend this time with me today.
I'm so happy to be here with you, Victoria. So thank you so much for having me. There was no doubt I was going to do this. I just knew this was so important to me. So thank you.
Yeah. Siri, I wanted to ask, because it was so prominent in your book, and my mom happens to be a really important person to me. Both my parents. My mom seems very similar to yours in energy and just passion for you. Can you talk a little bit about her or the people in your life that have contributed to this growth, including Tony Robbins and perhaps coaches that you've had?
Oh my God. I mean, it's the people that come into our lives that they can have such a profound impact on us. Even if it's a negative experience, sometimes we learn so much from what I call our worthy adversaries, people that come into our life and they
Yeah.
might cause some disruption, but you learn so much from that time or that person. My parents, wow. My mom has been my greatest support my entire life. And just, I'll never forget, after my first race in triathlon, I'd come in dead last. I nearly drowned on the swim. I made a fool out of myself on the bike. I ran with my helmet on, dead last. But I was so happy. And that night, I said to my mom, I'm going to be the best in the world in this sport. And I could tell, she's looking at me like, how can she even think that this is possible? Like, she just was so awful today. But she kind of held her heart and said, okay, honey, I'm going to totally support you as far as emotionally and all of that, support you for 2 years. But promise me that if it doesn't look like things are going in the right direction, that you'll do something else that you're good at. And so she kind of chose to believe with me that maybe there was something there. And she's always been that way. She's always believed in me. And her love and her encouragement has meant the world to me. And my father, when I was 23 years old, I had realized that I was gay. And that was hard because I didn't, in those days too, it wasn't as accepted as it is now. But my dad had found out, and he called me to see if this was really true, what he'd heard about me. And when I said it was true, he just started crying and hung up the phone, and I didn't hear from him for 2 years. And that was such a massive blow because, my mom and my dad were my heroes. And it just made me feel like everything that I had accomplished in my first 23 years and who I was as a human meant absolutely nothing now that I was gay. Like, literally, I was worthless. And that was devastating. But looking back now, his rejection was such a gift for me, because when he rejected me, I was at a time where I'm just learning about me and discovering myself, and I'm on this mission to love myself and appreciate myself. And it instilled in me this drive, this will, this intensity to do whatever it took to prove to myself, most importantly, that even as a gay woman, that I could achieve great things in the world, that I could take on things that seem impossible, but, not be afraid to go after it and make it become a reality. And, prove to myself that I could inspire people, that I could be loved. And had he called and just said, oh my God, I'm so happy you're gay, that's wonderful, would I have had that same will, that same drive, that same determination that took me from being a 23-year-old who didn't even know how to swim to becoming a world champion, the best in the world 8 years later? I don't think so. So his rejection was a gift when I look at that now. And years later, thanks to Tony Robbins, I called my father to forgive him and to thank him for being exactly the father I needed him to be, to become the woman that I truly am so proud to be today. And he cried, and he said he was sorry, and he said how much he loved me, and he said how proud he was of me. And I had my father back, number one, but I also had my freedom, my freedom from holding on to that pain of resentment, that pain of having been hurt and holding on to it. So I'm so grateful for Tony Robbins and how he leads us to understand that forgiveness is so powerful. No matter how bad you've been hurt, you can always find a gift in what happened. And by that, I mean, you know, would you be the same person that you are today had that not happened, or had that person been different? Or maybe you have certain things in your life that you wouldn't have if that hadn't happened. And now I have the most wonderful relationship with my father. We've built it up over the years, and he's been one of my greatest supporters at this stage in my life. And I'm so grateful. But to add to that, there was one coach, my first triathlon coach, Yoli Cassis. And one of the first things she said to me that has forever impacted my life is she said, Siri, I will always care way more about who you are as a person than what you achieve in this sport. Basically saying that, like, your achievements or your titles doesn't mean anything in comparison to your character and who you are as a human, how you treat others. And that really impacted me. And, you know, I've kind of lived my life with that in my heart. So those are probably the biggest influences throughout my life.
I love it. My dog loves it too. If you hear her, she's a little Yorkie, and she's just, I have to say, before we got on, and everyone should know, and I want to get into this too for a couple of minutes, she was barking up a storm before you started speaking. And as soon as you started speaking earlier, she just quieted down. And I know she's hungry now, so you definitely have an energy. I don't know what it is, but she doesn't do that to anyone else.
That means the world to me. Thank you.
I want to know, as a coach, what does it mean for you? What is a coach? And did that contribute to how you function as a coach to others? Like, what is a coach, right? We hear this word thrown around a lot, right? Tony Robbins is a coach, and I'm a coach, and I'm a parent coach, and someone's a coach. And I have a lot of clients that have coaches, you know, athletes and stuff. What is that to you?
Gosh, as a coach, whether it's a coach of my athletes or a coach of people that come to me, you know, to live better lives, I feel like we are there to help guide them to living their truest, most authentic lives, to bringing them back to, you know, like I said with that quote, you know, chipping away at the marble so that they can truly reveal that angel that's inside of them, that potential that's inside of them. But one of the things, you know, especially as a coach of my athletes, that I thought was so incredibly important when I started coaching was coaching with vulnerability and with total authenticity, which meant to me, you know, I don't want my athletes to think that I became a world champion because all I did is just work hard and I had no worries and no fear and no, like, that's just not true. I want them to know that I failed over and over again, that I got disappointed over and over again, but that's how I learned. That's how I grew. I didn't learn through the victories. I learned from my failures. And the fact is that I never, ever, ever gave up. And when I would fail or be disappointed, I would look for the lesson. What is this teaching me? How can I be better? And I want them to know that I used to step on the start line so anxious that I would nearly pee my pants. I want them to know that I was afraid of failure. I want them to know these things because that, you know, just like I said, in college, I didn't know that other people were anxious. I didn't know that they had fear. I didn't know that. I thought I was alone. I want my athletes to know the truth about how one gets from, you know, not being good at something to becoming the best or as good as they could ever dream of becoming. So I want to share, in order to do that, I have to be vulnerable. But what that does is it empowers them. It empowers them to believe that, yeah, life doesn't look perfect. It's actually through our struggles where we build up all our strength. You know, and by overcoming, we build up more courage. and we build up more strength, which allows us to achieve that much more. So that's been so incredibly important to me, to lead with vulnerability, to lead authentically, because I also believe that when you lead that way, you're giving them permission to do the same. And then it has like a domino effect, and the people in their lives are feeling empowered to be open and to be real. And my belief is that all of us are our most powerful selves when we live authentically, when we're not trying to think about who we need to be or how we need to act. That just slows us down, gets in the way, steals our energy, steals our joy. So I hope I answered that question. I know that was, I go around.
You don't stop apologizing, Siri, because you're incredible. You should just have them read your book. I mean, chapter after chapter, I'm like, what has this woman not been through? How does she keep getting up? I think it was one of the earlier chapters where like your bike broke. Is that right? Or something happened. And I was thinking like, how did she, how do you keep overcoming and getting up? And then thinking about all of the different people in your life that were so influential, some in positive ways, some in, ways that were challenging, right? But I have not gotten to the end of the book, so I don't want to, you can talk about it, but I don't, but it's been incredible. And I also want to know, because you mentioned your pet was your security blanket, in your life. And you do so much with animals, which, by the way, just stole my heart, which is why I reached out to you in the first place. I was like, I need this woman on. I need to talk to you. What is it how did you get into tell us what you do, number one, and then how did you get into it? Because it's incredible.
Well, so first of all, I mean, animals for me, at that time when my mom was traveling all the time, like animals were my greatest source of love. Yeah. And throughout my entire life, they've been some of my most powerful teachers, just watching, the joy, like when I was taking up triathlon, watching the joy of my dog Whoopi when we go for a run. And it was just like the greatest thing in the world. And I fell in love with running, just watching her joy in doing it. But in 2016, I rescued a horse. And the reason was, the month before I was out in California on sabbatical, actually writing my book. And every morning I would walk the dogs down the road, and our turnaround point was at this little farmette. And there was a horse there, and I really had nothing to do with horses in my life. I thought they were beautiful, but I'd never kind of interacted with them. But every morning I would interact with this horse, and I just felt like it just had such a calming presence. It started my day off in the most beautiful way. So I got home from that sabbatical, and I rescued a horse from a horse rescue that was actually right down the street, but I had never noticed it before. And this horse came into my life and immediately just started changing my life. I mean, talk about self-discovery. I discovered a courage, a bravery that I never even thought could be possible inside of myself. And it all came from my work with her. And one day I just thought, why did I have to rescue her anyway? And I got online and I Googled, why would I need to rescue a horse? And this video popped up. And to this day, if you Google that same sentence, you can't find this video. But it was a video, and I'm not going to describe it because it was the worst thing I've ever seen in my entire life, of how they're slaughtered, how long it takes, how they're basically being dismembered while they're still alive. Their friends are watching, knowing that they're next. It was so awful. I fell to the ground, not to be dramatic. I truly fell to the ground crying, bent over. And my wife came running up the steps thinking that somebody had died. And I just pointed at the screen, and she watched it. She started bawling, and we looked at each other, and we knew that our lives were never going to be the same again. We had to do something about this. It was just horrific.
Yeah.
Now, neither of us were in a position to take on trying to end horse slaughter or trying to save horses, but it didn't matter. It affected us so deeply that we were going to find a way and find the space in our lives to make this happen. So literally within a year, we developed Believe Ranch and Rescue, which is our nonprofit. And in the last 4 years, we've rescued 130 horses from slaughter. And thank you. The beautiful thing, for those of you that may not be horse lovers, these horses are some of the most powerful healers of humans. They help kids with autism, help kids with disabilities, help people finally end addiction, help people with PTSD. So we run an equine therapy program.
Wow.
So it's come full circle where we're saving these animals, but they're saving humans. And so we've been doing that for 4 years, but then we reached a point where this is just like a Band-Aid. We're just constantly, we can't save enough. We save 4, but there's 60 going off in a truck to be slaughtered. So we created a second nonprofit, which is called Horses in Our Hands, that is doing all the lobbying to actually pass the bill that will ban horse slaughter and the transport of horses across the borders into Mexico and Canada. It will ban slaughter for human consumption, and we are so close. So this is another instance where when I told people what we were doing, they just laughed at me and said, "That's ridiculous. You can't do that. Like, you're 2 people. You can't do that?" And we said, "We're doing it, and we will not stop until we end this brutal practice." So that's what we're doing, and it's the most beautiful and incredible work. These horses they teach us so much about forgiveness. They come to us after having been really badly treated. And within a week of us, not just giving them food and medical care and everything that they need, but loving on them and giving them consistency. They know they're going to get fed. They know they're going to get love. They transform, and they are so loving and so trusting and so beautiful. So they really teach us, the power of forgiveness. And but the work that they do with humans is just so inspirational. And if you haven't looked into horse therapy, read more about it, because it truly is just so powerful.
It is. That's incredible. And what you said about forgiveness, what they teach us about forgiveness. I was just speaking to a young woman I work with who is in the learning to be in the healing field, right? And the physical therapy field. And we were talking, and she says, "Well, I just do exercises with people." And because I grew up with a neurologist for a grandmother and mother, and like I myself am in this field of helping people, right? Horse healers of the mind, body, spirit, right? And what you have given the horses, it feels, is not just the food, right? Or the shelter, but just the love and the nurture and care. And I wonder in your life how much that has contributed to you. I know that recently you're a survivor of cancer as well. I mean, if there was another thing, there's like another thing, but how much does hope and love and care have to do with survival and recovery and just, all of that that helps you thrive?
Everything, Victoria. And it starts with, loving and caring for yourself, like you would the people you love the most in your life. I think it has everything. There were moments over the last year that got really tough. And I knew that, just like way back in college, that if I focused on how sick I felt, how weak I was, all these things, that wasn't going to make me feel better. That was just going to make me feel worse and would not lead to me healing. So I would constantly have to discipline my focus to focus on what I had, great doctors, great nurses, my wife by my side, my mom, my dad calling me every day, my sister who was my donor. And I would feel grateful, and I would focus on the good. And then I would, I had vision boards every inch of my hospital room to remind me of what I was fighting for, the life that awaited me on the other side of this, the life that I was going to be living. I was certain, no matter, they told me I had, less than 10% chance of survival, but I refused to believe that. I knew that I had so much more life to live and love to give and work to do in this world. And the horses, knowing how far we've come, like that that kept me going. It's like, no, they need me. And so, but having that love and that support and loving myself through those tough moments, not getting angry at myself for, feeling sad or feeling afraid, but loving myself through that was so incredibly important, and having the love and support of others. Now, one of the gifts that came out of this diagnosis and getting through it, and thank God being victorious on the other side, is that I learned how to receive. And before this, I was just a giver, give some more, pleaser, just as we talked about earlier. And I really, really struggled to receive. But cancer gives you no choice. You reach a point where you have to let people care for you. And I had to learn how to receive, but there was so much beauty in that, because I learned finally, although I should have known this before, just how loved I am by my wife, just how loved I am by my parents, just how much I love and appreciate myself and my life, this life that I so want to keep living. And also, when we learn to receive, we have so much more to give. You don't run out. There's this constant flow. You give and then you receive, and then you can just keep giving more and more of yourself. So that was the beautiful gift. But the horses throughout this process, it was so beautiful. Like, I got out of the hospital. I'd been in the hospital for like a month, maybe a month and a half. And I finally was able to come home. And the first thing I wanted to do was ride my horse. And my wife panicked. She said, Siri, my God, you're like, I was 25 pounds lighter than I am now. I was really weak. She said, can't, this is my horse. Look at her. Like, she's fierce, she's strong, she's fast. And I said, no, I'm going to ride Savannah. And I got on her, and my horse, who is usually so feisty, she'll take off in a gallop if I let her. I got on, and she started taking these tiny little steps, tiny little steps, barely moving. She usually reaches down and tries to get, grass, which if she tried to do that at that time, I wouldn't have been able to lift her head up. I wasn't strong enough. Not once did she try and reach down and eat grass. She just knew. She just knew exactly where I was and exactly what I needed. And as I started healing and getting stronger, she started stepping out a little bit more, reaching down for grass and saying, hey, Mom, you're better now. So I'm going to challenge you because you can handle it.
Aww.
It was just so, so beautiful. But allow yourself to be loved. Some of us, when we're hurting or we're in pain, we want to withdraw and we want to be by ourselves, and we don't want people to see us this way. Don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing too, I documented my entire journey.
Really?
Because I wanted people to, see what I was authentically going through, but also knowing the power of people's prayers for you, the power of them sending you love. Like, I didn't want to miss out on any opportunity for healing energy to come my way. And I felt that by sharing what I was going through, that I could then take in the love and prayers from others, which could only help me. I didn't want to leave any stone unturned as far as doing everything in my power to heal. And that love and the prayers and the energy, I believe, played such a massive role in why I am alive and cancer-free and thriving today. I'm just so incredibly blessed and grateful, and recognize that truly, like, this life, our lives are a miracle. And every single moment we need to live to the fullest, because it truly is a miracle. And so don't waste time, don't sit back and wait for things to happen, make things happen, live your life. And most importantly, be your own biggest supporter, be your own champion, so that you can truly live life to the full.
I was going to ask, how are you doing today? But you just answered that question really eloquently. You seem to be doing amazingly. It doesn't mean you don't have bad days, but there's an energy about you, Siri, that's just incredibly authentic and, if I may say, innocent, almost like childlike from a sense of like pureness. You've been, which is ironic because you've been through so much.
Thank you.
But I'm a little lost for words because it just feels so renewing. It's like a cool waterfall. It's just like very renewing, you know? And that's just, it must be a testament to the people you have around you, the practice. You know, this is a practice, what you're talking about. I'm not confused that this is, you know, not something that just like happens, right? And it's incredible to hear it from the horse's mouth.
That's awesome. Thank you, Victoria. That means the world to me. That just made me like teary for some reason. I don't know why that really touched me. So thank you.
It's beautiful. I want everybody to know what you're up to and how they can contribute or join. So what do you have going on right now? And how can people find you? How can people get involved?
Obviously, you know, my mission with Believe Ranch and Rescue, we're on Instagram and Facebook at Believe Ranch and Rescue. Follow us there. Donations obviously mean everything to us. You know, for every $1,000 we can save a horse. For every $10 we can buy a bale of hay. So every dollar literally helps us there. As far as something I'm doing that I'm really excited about is I have this Seriously Authentic squad. And it was just an idea. I guess it's kind of like a mastermind, but it's just this place where just 25 people meet with me for 90 minutes each week. And we, you know, we talk about living fearlessly authentic and what that takes, and, you know, re-narrating our stories that have held us back, and examining our values, and, you know, learning how to overcome fear and self-love, all these things. And it's something that I'm so excited about because it seems to be really touching a lot of lives. The next one starts in May. They sell out pretty quickly, but if you have any interest, definitely, if you start seeing me post about it on Instagram, I'd love to have you in my group. But yeah, just raising awareness about the horses and the healing that they do for humans. But most importantly, just love and believe in yourself, because when you do, you can truly start touching the world in your own way. And you all have magic inside of you, and the world needs each and every one of you as you, exactly, uniquely you. So my biggest ask is just be you and shine your light in this world, because that's what this world really needs most.
Siri, thank you. Thank you for shining your light today. I share this with you. I have my little Yorkie. If I could, she runs away. So if I would try to pick her up, she won't let me. She's playing with a pen underneath the table. But I shared this with you prior to us rolling here, and I know that we're live. But like I said, talking to you creates the access for other people who are going through whatever it is that they're going through to really see the possibility for themselves. It was so important for me to read about your life through your own words, because I really needed to see, like, what was this woman through? Because this is incredible, right? And you really put, you really stamped it for me that it is through struggle that we get, you know, that we get stronger. It is tension that creates that, you know, pushback. It's really, it sounds like weird and paradoxical, right? And people can get angry when I say it, but it's really those gifts and those challenges that create, you know, what I'm talking to now, which is this incredible light in the world. You've just been an incredible, incredible contribution today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Victoria. And you just nailed that spot on. It is through our struggles that we strengthen. And I know that's hard to hear. And I think that's why people get upset, because it's hard to hear that you oftentimes have to struggle to really, you know, become what you dream of becoming. But it should also give you comfort knowing that when you are in struggle, you will struggle much more gracefully when you know that something beautiful is going to come out of this. And so it makes the struggles easier to digest, because you know that you are becoming through this overcoming of whatever it is you're going through. And that's going to be a beautiful thing. So yeah, thank you, Victoria. That was beautifully said on your part.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the acknowledgement. Siri, this will definitely not be the last conversation you and I will have. And again, thank you for being here. Thank you everyone for listening. And if you're watching the replay, please reach out to Siri. She is accessible through Instagram, she told me, which is excellent. And check out all the things that she's up to. I think it's incredible. And just to be in proximity to you and your energy is a gift. Have a wonderful day, everybody. And Siri, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Victoria. This was wonderful.